This may sound a little strange, but sometimes when I'm in a bad mood, I don't necessarily want to feel better. Sometimes I want to wallow in my angst, delight in my despair, and I want to be reassured that other people view the world with as much pessimism as I sometimes do. So here are 8 books to read when you're in a terrible mood. These stories are filled with unrelenting negativity, nasty narrators, and a bracing dose of cynicism. If you have another suggestion of a book that fits this description, feel free to leave that in the comments. Let's get into it. The anti-heroine of this novel is Megan, a disillusioned millennial who is deeply unhappy with her dead-end job and all the fake people around her. She hates LinkedIn lunatics and tryhards of all stripes and takes them down in brutal, darkly hilarious vignettes. Her story is paralleled by that of her coworker Jillian, whose barely functional life is derailed by the ill-advised adoption of a dog. Here's a quote that exemplifies the mood of this novel. That day she thought, "F it," and went to a smaller grocery store. The store was for rich people, but it, right? There were delights there. She wanted to make something out of vegetables. The selection was small, but everything did look so much healthier. There were summer squash the size of a baby's arm, and baby bok choy that looked clean and smooth and not like a bunch of slugs had been f***ing and barfing on it in the back of a truck for weeks. So this is how the better half eats. Is there any hope for these characters, or will they surrender to a downward spiral aided and abetted by simply existing in the hellscape of late capitalism? You'll have to read the book to find out. This novel, set in 1950s Los Angeles, centers around the twisted relationship between a woman and her sister-in-law. Laura, the main character, is super close with her brother Bill. When Bill becomes entangled in a whirlwind romance with Alice and gets married surprisingly fast, straight-laced Laura is skeptical of Alice's background as a Hollywood wardrobe assistant. Although Alice acts like the perfect 1950s housewife for a while, Laura soon meets some of her shady friends. She's both horrified and fascinated when she finds out that Alice might have connections to people who are involved in prostitution and drugs. Eventually, when Alice becomes tangled up in a suspicious death that may well be a murder, Laura has to decide what to do. If you're in the mood for a healthy dose of reality television-style cattiness, but in book form, this novel by Jessica Knoll will do the trick. It follows the machinations of a group of women starring in a reality show about millennial entrepreneurs. Although the showrunner claims the show is supposed to be positive and focused on female empowerment, competition and drama are of course inevitable. Perhaps the biggest conflict is between two sisters, Brett and Kelly, whose rivalry extends all the way back to their childhood. Brett is currently star of the show, so she is not happy when Kelly also gets a spot on the show and is there to potentially undermine her status as fan favorite. This season of the show that the book covers goes way off the rails, so badly that somebody ends up getting murdered. Reviews of this novel on Goodreads and book blogs are rather mixed, as a lot of readers do feel turned off by how unlikable and unrelentingly nasty the characters are, but if you don't mind not having anyone nice to root for, it is extremely entertaining. I loved this novel from beginning to end. This bizarre and darkly hilarious novel tells the story of a humble bank worker who feels that the world is out to get him. One day, he decides to balance the books by getting revenge, and things quickly spin out of control. There's not much else to say about this one. It's super short and very fun to read if you're in the right mood for it. Are you sick of how our culture and media fawn over clearly evil billionaires? Eleanor Catton sees it like you do, and she's here to expose the ugliness. Our main character, Mira, is the leader of an anarchist guerrilla gardening collective, which finds untended plots of land on which to grow fruits and vegetables, with vague plans to undermine capitalism or something along those lines. When a landslide cuts off a mountain pass in New Zealand and results in a farm being abandoned, Mira and her cult-like group of followers move in to grow crops. But the land has also caught the attention of an American billionaire who meets Mira by chance and offers her a deal. He'll fund her operation, which is desperate for cash, and meanwhile, he'll be building his own personal doomsday bunker nearby. Mira thus faces a dilemma familiar to many nonprofit leaders. You do need funds for operations, but the kind of people who have money are often the exact kind of people whose actions you find to be unethical. She decides to take the cash, but it should surprise no one that this deal with the devil ends in disaster. Eleanor Catton won the Booker Prize with her novel The Luminaries in 2013 when she was just 28 years old. While I enjoyed The Luminaries, I found Birnam Wood to be even more brilliant. Her writing style has a satisfying psychological depth and sentence-level complexity. And the events in this book are absolutely gripping and read as a stunning indictment of the power structure of the world in which we currently live. We'll carry the environmental theme forward with The Monkey Wrench Gang by Edward Abbey, a novel about people who are so outraged by the destruction of land in the American West for profit that they decide to take matters into their own hands. This novel is infamous for basically being an ode to so-called eco-terrorism, but I think the word sabotage is actually more accurate. The characters plan their actions such that people are never harmed. The only victims here are industrial equipment, such as the bulldozers being used to destroy the land. Our heroes also burn down a few hideous billboards along the way. Apparently, back in the day, billboards were made of wood, and people could actually go out and take them down with the help of a few friends. Unlike today's digital monstrosities, which impose unbelievably ugly and distracting images onto our eyeballs while wantonly increasing light pollution, and which are reinforced with enormous metal structures that would be impossible for just a few people to destroy. But I digress. The thing that's most interesting to me about this book is actually how funny it is. I had it on my shelf for a long time before reading it because I was worried that it would be too depressing. There are serious moments, as in this part, one of my favorite quotes, where one of the characters looks out over canyon country and reflects, "Hell of a place to lose a cow. Hell of a place to lose your heart. Hell of a place thought seldom seen. To lose." But the novel spends a lot more time describing exciting explosions, outrageous chase scenes, and thrilling escapes, reminiscent of the Western genre that it riffs on. For environmentally motivated fiction, it's surprisingly fun to read. This is one of those classics that I avoided for a long time because I was worried that it would be boring. Then a book blogger inspired me to read it, and I couldn't believe I had wasted so much of my life in ignorance of this astonishing piece of literature. On the other hand, it precipitated an existential crisis wherein I questioned the value of any kind of contemporary writing, particularly and especially my own, that could not possibly hope to live up to something so vivid and urgent despite its creation millennia ago. So I guess you win some, you lose some. The entire framing of this poem is the waxing and waning of anger, specifically Achilles' anger within a short time frame during the Trojan War. Achilles is the best Greek fighter, the only one who really has a chance at defeating Hector, the Trojan hero, to win the war. When Achilles is slighted by his military commander, he basically goes on strike by refusing to fight. Since Achilles won't join the battle, his best friend Patroclus takes the field on his behalf. When Hector kills Patroclus, Achilles vows revenge. Throughout the story, his anger grows from an initial whiny meltdown to an epic, all-encompassing rage against the universe that, while I may not be an ancient Greek warlord, I find highly relatable. As a result, this is one of the most satisfying bad mood stories around. Milton's epic poem chronicles the bad mood that escalated out of control into a rebellion against God himself. Satan is written as a darkly compelling anti-hero whose pride and ambition spur him to attempt to overthrow the order of heaven. When that doesn't work, he settles for an exciting escape from hell to wreak havoc on Earth by tempting Adam and Eve. It's worth reading this poem for the extraordinary language alone, but it's also surprisingly relatable. Satan kind of reminds me of an exploited employee struggling against a tyrannical boss, which led to the creation of this extra and rather random video that I also posted this week. So there you have it, a bunch of books to read when you're feeling less than positive. Are there any others I should add to this list? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.